What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius and CL. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So, come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius and boy, do we have a special guest, my man, the man of the hour, CL Turner is in the house. What's up, CL?
Keeping it reals.
Oh, reels it is. So for those of you that don't know, Mr. CL, he has a nickname for me. Mr. CL, what's my nickname?
D-Reels.
He calls me the D-Reels. Look, I've had a ton of nicknames in my day, but this is probably one of my favorites.
The sharp is hard to spell.
That's, you know what? When your last name is 12 letters long with 2 silent H's, you get a ton of nicknames for your first name. So D-Reels is what my main man CL here calls me. So he might be calling me that during the show. If he does, you got to bear with it. It's a thing, and I can't fight it. I can't fight the love and feeling when he says it. And so that may or may not happen. I'm not going to argue one way or the other. Hey, CL, do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get going here?
Absolutely.
Let's do that. So for listeners who are new to the show, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People are living their passions and those creating greatness in the world and doing so despite the odds. And my main man CL is neither short of passion nor greatness. So I am at CL. I got two little tidbits on CL, and then we're going to talk about his formal bio because he's a man of many talents. But I met CL through my Tiger 21 group, and I've talked a little bit about that on the show here. And man, right away I noticed he had an affinity for a couple things. Number one is we have a very interesting vocabulary. Like CL has a real cool way he talks. He has almost like it's almost like you're singing when you're talking a little bit. And I noticed it right away with my man CL. And I also noticed that he just had a real harmonious way about himself. And immediately I was attracted to him. So fast forward to a year ago. I'm in Austin International Airport on my way to LA, and I see, and we're all masked up then because people are still wearing their masks, and maybe this is a year and a half ago, and I see CL, and he's standing in front of the gate for the flight I'm going to be on, and I don't remember exactly what I did, but I remember I kind of went up to him. And I think I went up and either whispered something to you or gave you a little shove or something, but it was something that you wouldn't do unless you were friends with somebody, and if you received it.
For a moment, D-Reels became D-Thugs.
One of my nicknames in my fraternity was Debo, like the guy from Friday who would punk people. So, my Debo came out. The D-Reels went away. Debo showed up, and I figured if you ever give someone a little push or you in public, they're it's way out of context because they're like, "Who the hell just pushed me?" And then obviously it's a friend. So I thought I'd fuck with CL a little bit. But yeah, man, then we sat on a flight and got to hang out for 4 hours, and I got to hear all about his amazingness. And one of the things that really stood out to me, and I'm going to go into your formal bio in a second, was I found out that he was in a reggae band in was it in Jamaica, or it was in the Caribbean?
In the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean, the hotel circuit, that happened when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
So I mean, now first and foremost, I haven't gone into his formal bio because the man is a badass private equity killer who's just out there crushing it, building tons of value in the businesses with his portfolio companies, has a huge background in finance. But I find out that my main man, and you play keyboard, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Keyboard player in a reggae band in the Caribbean, was a college baseball player. I mean, just like tons of interesting facts about CL, and I loved him even more just to learn those things about him. But the formal bio, I'm going to give you your formal bio, and I'd love to hear your origin story and kind of talk a little bit about how you got to where you got to in life. So when I got it, I told him before the show, I was reading it and I laughed out loud because CL is just, I love you, man. You're such a character. You're such an awesome dude. But it says CL writes and plays while his daughter sings, much better than he writes and plays. CL has attended more concerts by Ariana Grande, or as we call her, REG. Is it REG? Did I pronounce her name properly? Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, Adele, Melanie Martinez than any other PE professional. So big lover of music, but most professionally is the founder and managing partner of Crescendo Capital Partners. Notice Crescendo, like as in the music note. CL has invested in 50 plus companies. He has a daughter who shares the same passion in music. He writes songs and he loves attending concerts. And today he's here spreading some of his greatness on the Greatness Machine. So my man, welcome to the show.
Well, I'm happy to be here on the Greatness Machine because it makes no damn sense to participate in the mediocrity machine.
That's right. Screw that. Screw medium machine.
Why would you?
Well, you are a Greatness Machine, CL. So I'd love if you wouldn't mind. We love origin stories here at the Greatness Machine. We'd love to hear kind of context around what got people to where they're at. Would you mind giving us kind of like a quick, like 5-6 minutes? Like, give us your background. How'd you get into what you got into? Maybe talk a little bit about the reggae stuff. But I'd love to hear about how you got to where you're at, where you're out there buying companies, building Crescendo, doing all these amazing things in the world of business.
I guess at the beginning, the origin. What is different about me is my parents, both deceased, were very old when I was born. Naturally, they were both in their mid and upper 40s. My dad died in 84, my mom in 05. But I was raised essentially by grandparents, although they were my obviously my parents, but the age difference suggested that. Grew up in Dallas. I went to a bunch of colleges in Texas and got a job as an investment banker in the mid-late 1980s. And spent the first 10 years as an investment banker, largely raising capital for companies. But there was a seminal event that really changed my thinking. Motel 6, Dallas-based, they had most of their properties in Texas and California, was a client. And I learned after the fact the story about how KKR had purchased Motel 6 for $1 billion. They borrowed 90% of it. And about 18 months later, they sold it for $2+ billion, turned 10, 11 times their money. Didn't do much with the business, but made a stupendous amount of money. And I said, I am on the wrong side of this table. So it took me about 5 years to rebrand. Many of the skills are the same between being an intermediary and being a principal. Some are very different. But I worked my way up that ladder and originally formed Crescendo when I worked for a billionaire out of Nevada. I absorbed a less than an imperfect portfolio, and Crescendo I first formed it to house the equity action I got in the deals that I inherited, and I got slightly more action in the new deals that we did. But actually, for a time, thought that he would be my essential benefactor or funding or sugar daddy, as you might say, for the rest of my investment career. That turned out not to be true, largely because real estate guys view the world differently than private equity guys, kind of strange bedfellows. I did 3 or 4 transactions, partnering with a group of like-minded guys. We would band together based on geographic proximity, domain expertise, bandwidth, what have you. But the seminal event to put for Crescendo was about 6 or 7 years ago when my main collaborator died unexpectedly, when I had 3 deals under LOI, one of which later became a 30x return for us, which we would be lucky to ever replicate. But I either had to join another firm at that point, or I had to form infrastructure around Crescendo. I was too old, too Texan to want to work for anybody else at that point in my professional career. So brought a guy who I'd served on the board with, knew him to be young and very sharp. And then we did another deal and added a guy. And you look today, and we are 11 or 12 professionals. I think we just closed I think it was our 14th deal last week, and maybe 15th this week. And things have gone very well at Crescendo. Largely, we focus on old economy businesses, and in particular, building things, breaking things, fixing things. That's us across all kinds of end markets. And I guess beyond that, I would say, yes, I'm a music buff for sure, sort of a pedestrian player with a pretty good ear, but it's always been a passion. And I've got an album coming out soon where I've been fortunate enough in my professional career that I could hire world-class musicians to take my 10 least bad, actually 13 least bad songs and give them real professional TLC. And that's what we've done. And you couldn't wipe the grin off my face for about 5 days in the studio. And I think it'll become a yearly thing. And every year I'll put out 5 to 10 songs no one else cares about.
I love it, man.
So beyond that, as you asked for an introduction, left-handed, blue-eyed, Pisces, and like long beach walks.
I love it, man. So I want to take a step back. So you did some time as an intermediary, and we talked a little bit about this. You worked for some pretty prolific investment banking firms. How was it making that switch to when you said you went from being the intermediary to the principal? Like when you made that move, I mean, obviously that's a really big change, you know, and I myself, as you know, are kind of going through a change right now and trying to pivot in my life. You know, a lot of people do that, you know, especially around midlife. It's this point where you're like, all right, I've been doing this. I don't want to keep doing this, what I've been doing. I want to kind of go in this new direction. Like, how did you think about that? Well, was it just like, I mean, you said it took a few years to make that pivot. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I thought it would be shorter than it was. I can remember telling somebody that I was going to make this change, and he said, a guy I respect, he said, central casting does not see you that way, meaning he had only seen me through the prism of being an intermediary. I made a couple of good decisions. One, I had some healthcare services expertise at that time. I traded essentially some healthcare knowledge. I'll teach you some healthcare services if you'll help me better understand how the principal world works. And then another good decision, again, came through the advice somebody gave me, which was when I did my first deal on my own as a principal, I didn't have a track record around Crescendo. I knew deals, but someone said, you should do your first couple of deals, essentially borrow somebody else's track record, let them on the economics of the deal until you establish your own bona fides. And that was great advice, and I took it. The challenge of moving from an intermediary to a principal is, especially as you get further into your intermediary career, where you've spent half decade, a decade, or even a couple of decades, is that an investment banker largely selling businesses just becomes the kind word would be champion, the unkind word would be shill for the companies you're representing. You lose discernment. You do every transaction that you think can reasonably result in a fee. That is not the same thing as culling through 1 in 100 or 1 in 500 transactions. And even for the best investment bankers, it was hard for me too. Not that I was the best investment banker, but the change from every client is a great client as long as there is a market for that client, to I only want to deal with the businesses that are, I believe, you won't always get this right. There are a couple of deviations to the right of the bell curve. Is very different than that of an investment banker, which says as long as something isn't so bad that through improprieties and will damage my reputation, I will sell it and take a fee. The discernment blurs over time. And I would say my 8-10 year stint as an investment banker was probably about as long as I could have. And again, I mentioned it took me 5 years for a partial stamp, probably 8 until I was fully stamped.
Wow. So when you brought on, first of all, thanks for sharing that. I think that's a lot of times people get really enthusiastic about making a change because they're maybe tired of what is it? Familiarity breeds contempt, right? So they're like, oh man, like I know this, I've been sleeping with this person for a while. I want something new. I mean, that's maybe,
on the record, I'm married. I've been married for 2 years. That is not my position.
No. I was, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Hey, my wife's like, what the fuck did you just say? No, not you, baby. So no, I didn't mean that. Let's go in a different direction, Darius. I've been eating rice and beans every night for the last 8 years. I really would like some sushi, right? So we want to make a change because we want something new. We see a better opportunity. All the different reasons why people make changes. Do you think that's if you were to go back and give CL advice then to try to speed up that transition, what advice might you have given yourself?
I don't know that I would have been able to do things differently. I would certainly advise someone today differently. When I came up out of B school, there were very few pockets of principal money where you could personally reap the spoils. You could invest, but that was largely done on behalf of insurance firms and banks and the like. Private equity firms were in their infancy. But it was really a matter of dollars for me. I was 32 years old, maybe making the equivalent of a $500,000 to $1 million today, running around all the time thinking that's sexy. And it was. But when I saw I said, this is the same skill set, slightly tweaked, can result in wealth instead of income. I said, I need to be on that side of the table. And as I would advise anybody now, I would take any job as a principal, any job before a more prestigious or higher paying job as a lender or an intermediary, because what you're ultimately after is ownership.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so when you made that transition, you said that you had gotten some really sage advice around bringing on a partner with a track record. Tell us a little bit about that.
I didn't bring him on so much as I partnered with him on a couple of deals, and he waved his flag as well as I waved Crescendo. But the financing partners for that deal took comfort in the fact that he was involved because I was an unknown entity, and it wasn't just him. There were a couple of others, but my first, actually, I think it might have been 5 deals I did that way, partnering with buddies who had who didn't have a longer record than me, but had more of an independent flag that had some name recognition than what I had as just Crescendo. And I would say, interestingly, though, that first guy that I mentioned, who I partnered with or collaborated with often, as I said, it was his unexpected death, which led me. He was my prime collaborator. I had to then either, as I said, join another shop, or Crescendo needs to become a real thing rather than me floating independently, pairing with collaborators on an ad hoc basis.
So when with his obviously tragic and unexpected passing, that put you in a position, to your point, where you had to either bury the flag under someone else's flag or really fly your flag high. It sounds like you took the bolder step and did that. How did that how did that feel? Were you like was that like the no-brainer answer, or were you pretty freaked out by that?
I knew there was value in the 3 LOIs that I had. And,
gotcha.
And I didn't know that it would turn out as it did, but I knew there was value there. I was pushing 50 at that time. I'd already made some money. I didn't need to feed a family of 6. I was in a different financial situation. And what I would tell you was asked a couple months ago, when did you decide to be an entrepreneur? And the answer is never. We just had more deal flow and more requirements and kept adding talent, typically well known to multiple people at our firm, until we woke up one day with 12 people, and it's a thing.
And so with those deals, I mean, obviously someone that's trying to get into private equity, when you look at, sounds to me like one thing is that it's probably going to take longer than people expect. And I think that's true of many new endeavors. But what do you think was one of the keys to your success? Obviously, you were able to go out there and make deals happen. One of the primary complaints I hear, or primary reasons I hear that people fail at going and doing deals in private equity, is being able to get those 3 LOIs under contract, being able to find deals, being able to put deals together. What are some of the potholes that you think that people are not able to overcome that you were, and how did you do it?
I would say there are 2 different approaches. One is internal, one is external. The internal is within the owner-operator's office and convincing him that you and your firm are the right way. I think I have some skills in that regard. I have affinity for the kinds of guys that build the kinds of businesses in which we invest. The other thing that was helpful was I allied with a group of operating professionals. So I wasn't just a finance guy running around saying I have a deal, but had some talent that could be useful and additive, whether from a board or an advisory basis. And that was sufficient to get the deals under LOI. At that time, I invested my own money in deals, but I didn't have the capital strength to invest as much as I do today, where in our deals, we invest all the equity ourselves, and it's mainly mine. That wasn't the case when I started. I needed to be able to communicate a strong case to prospective investors. And I knew what they didn't like. And I said, I would say the main thing, I would say three variables come to mind. One is some kind of specialty expertise or domain expertise, not just I got in front of a Houlihan Lokey pitch book and I'm one of 250 guys that saw it. I know something about this sector. Two is that it is bought right. Asking people to play in your deal and give economics and pay management fees when you are less established than others and you have at least paid market and maybe more, that's anathema to an LP. And then the third part to that is bringing value after the close. So when you go to a prospective investor in your deal and say, it's well vetted, it's bought right, we know this space, we have help, we can be useful in this play, that resonates. And many what are now called independent sponsors, and by the way, we invest our own capital, and you take the opposite of that, which many independent sponsors qualify, don't have any money, don't have any expertise, not particularly differentiated, buying it at rack rate. That's a whole hum. And the question I get asked now, or the question I think sometimes now, when people ask me to participate in their deals, I look at that and say, there's nothing differentiated. So you want to check all those boxes. And if you do, you'll get investor interest. But that comes back to I would say the thorny or part there is, how do you get a founder, owner, operator, a FOO? How do you get a FOO to sell to you at less than market rate, which is what really drives the rest? And the answer is, you have to be very convincing that in his, if he retains equity, which is common, that second bite at the apple through you is going to be tastier than it would be elsewhere. And that's how you get market or maybe slightly under market deals. And that's what will ultimately win an investor base when you don't have the capital to do so yourself.
And when number one, I appreciate that answer. Number two, I know that in your deals that you guys are really working with kind of a combination of debt and equity. What's your perspective on leveraging debt in your deals, and how would you consider how do you think other people should think about that when they're looking at doing private equity?
Maybe I should mention just one other thing to contrast, and I'll answer your question. A deal bounced into me a couple of years ago in the cybersecurity space, and you would very correctly say, CL, what the hell do you know about that? The answer would be absolutely nothing. But a deal came to me, but I sent that deal off to a friend, threw a few bucks behind it, but it's not one where we're differentiated. We don't have any expertise and the like, so I wasn't going to go to market under the Crescendo name with something where quite obviously we're naive in that particular sector. Hand it off to the experts. With respect to debt, you have vectors moving in two different directions. The obvious one, we're in the ROE business, and the more you lever, the better your returns are. The vector in the other direction, of course, is the more you lever, the more financial risk you take. Every deal you buy, I won't say it will wobble out of the chute, but there will be skeletons. There will be things you did not know, no matter how well you vetted. And you need a capital structure that can withstand at least a bump or so of the magnitude that you gave me in the airport. I would say, though, when you're buying businesses, as we focus on unloved, old economy, typically cyclical businesses, we're paying less than 4 times cash for those. And we're not, when say stealing them, there's not a whole lot of other interest. Our typical MO might be to put 1.5 turns of earnings in terms of equity, a couple of turns of debt, maybe in a 60-40 ratio. You might say that 60-40 ratio is high, but we look at it more in terms of the ratio of debt to the earnings of the business. And if we acquire a cyclical business and it's levered at 2 and 2.25 times, and we know there's a strong backlog and reputation that's going to run them for at least a year or two, we say to ourselves, absolutely worst case, we de-lever to where we're only down to 1.5 times EBITDA in terms of leverage. That's work that's already on the books. And then if something happens, then we don't want. We hope it doesn't, but if it would, we could certainly fight that battle and live another day. Where that becomes more problematic, this all comes back to getting a very respectable inbound purchase multiple. If you're buying businesses for 7 and you're putting 3x of equity and 4x of debt, and things don't go as you expect out of the chute, your 4x of debt just went to 5.5 or 6x, and the lender owns the company. And it all almost, so the ability to withstand leverage, the ability to attract investors, the ability, why we've made great returns because we've been able to leverage cyclical businesses as a percent of our purchase price, all comes down to buying them at a respectable price. We can't deviate.
Yeah, it makes sense. So really a lot of the value is created on the buy, right? Which I think a lot of people
made money every time we close a deal. Now that hasn't always proven to be true, but we won't do that without that assumption.
And so going the other way, which is when it hasn't proven to be true, what would you say is, and maybe there's a bunch of different reasons for that, but what would you say is the biggest reason you've found deals that don't work? What's kind of like, if you could go back and whisper in early CL's ear and be like, hey bud, look out for this, and this, what would you have told yourself?
Myself, but wasn't it Cher that said, if I could turn back time? She did. As I look at 15 deals that we've done, we had one significant problem and a couple of irritants. The couple of irritants, we came in on transactions that are smaller we wouldn't do today. Just not enough meat in the bone. $15, $20 million revenue businesses, we wouldn't do those deals today based on size. As a practical matter, as we retrospectively assess that, any founder, owner, operated business that's making $3.5 million on 15 or 20 million of revenue, you know damn well there's no infrastructure going in. You know that guy is the chief contact for customers. You know people in the office look for his permission to go to the restroom. You are completely vulnerable in that scenario, and that's just endemic to those size businesses. The other one I had, it was a fraud and accounting challenge. We thought we bought a business that was making 7 or 8 million. It was making 7 or 8 million divided by 4. And even when you lever the businesses modestly, when you multiply EBITDA by 25%, it's a challenge. And that turned out to be the case. We've had. But all in all, it's been a great run. We've had 5 businesses return over 7x, 6, 7x, and good returns on the others.
That's amazing, man. So going back to that first comment, it sounds like a key man risk. They're not big enough. Is it because of the operational nature of your type of business, where maybe there's other businesses where that might work, but in a old world business with key man risk, operating risk, that just becomes a bottleneck because you are essentially having to hope they figure out the infrastructure problem? Is that really the issue?
We're in the persuasion business, not the dictation business. What I would say is that the businesses we buy generally can run to 25, maybe even $50 million under a very skilled, driven, autocratic founder. But beyond that, not only are those skills insufficient to double or treble the size of the business, they're harmful. Because usually that guy has made money by working 100 hours a week and dominating everything. And if you think of who has these businesses, the guys that we show up, we pay 25 to 50 million for their business. They've got 25 or 50 million that they've taken out and put in real estate. So this is a guy that's worth 50 or 100 million dollars, which is 50 to 100 times more than anybody else he knows. And when I say we're in the persuasion business, it's developing credibility with that guy to say, you've done great, but if we're to do better, some things have to change. Not beat our chest, new sheriff in town, that sort of thing. But we know to get the best outcome when we sell it 4 to 5 years down the road, there's 7 or 8 initiatives. We'll take them over time. But one of the key things we are assessing when we're evaluating the businesses isn't just the business, the financials, is what we believe to be the malleability of the founder to at least enable us, hopefully champion with us, to make some of the changes that we know will benefit the value in the long run.
And what do you think are the characteristics in an owner-operator, a founder, a FOO, as you call it, that really is ideal, especially if it's a, old world business, autocratic, mindset. They've got it, this is probably in a lot of these businesses, these are folks that like started on the job and I'll make up something up. The plumbing business, they were a plumber, right? They didn't go to, Harvard MBS or take Cornell's conscious leadership program. These are folks that like grinded, to your point,
yes,
built a significant amount of net worth. And then all of a sudden they're in bed with Crescendo and you're like, hey bud, like we need you to, level up because we're trying to, merge 3 of you guys together to build a $150 million company. What are the characteristics you look for in a founder owner operator to get them to where you need to get them to?
In our vetting process, I will challenge a couple of their key assumptions, and sometimes not in a aggravated way, but I want to push them off center. I'm mainly interested in how they react. I might say something. If you are Rasharza the Ampersand Sons and you want to sell your business, I say, Darius, we love you. I see you got both boys in the business. They might run the business on your nickel, but they're damn sure not doing it on mine. Let's get that out of the way soon. If that's what you think will happen, we're not the right partners. But there might be other sacred cows, but what we point to is it's easy now. It was not easy to begin with because now we can point to 10 companies we've done this way. Call Bill, Bob, Tom, Joe, Harry. They'll tell you, we don't always agree, but they'll say, Crescendo, good guys. They work hard. We had some fun. We made money with them. And when we disagreed agreeably, and they brought some value to the process. And about the 9th call they make, and they hear the same thing, they figure out that it must be true. But the kind of guy that builds this business would not take kindly, would not resonate if a native San Franciscan who attended boarding school, then Harvard, then the London School of Economics, from a perch in Soho, decided to tell the guy who came up through the plumbing ranks what he ought to do with his business. Fortunately, we're Texans and Midwesterners. The normal coastal private equity approach would not play. We are completely, we talk about things like hunting and fishing and college football, which are the exact same things that these guys talk about. Fortunately, we don't have to pretend in that regard as Texans and Midwesterners. College football, hunting, and fishing are pretty important.
Yeah, as a new Texan,
this is the biggest difference. When I was raising capital for large businesses, selling, I primarily raised capital rather than sold businesses. But when you're dealing with founder, owner, operators, it's personal. It is absolutely personal. And we have, when we go in and when we speak with these guys for the first time, we've got some guys on our team. They're young, they're smart. I've told them the only fireable offense is if you tell anybody you went to boarding school or went to Yale. The reason that we have that, we have 2.5 degrees per professional. I mean, but that's not what we lead with. We want them to perceive us as approachable. And I'll give you an example where a couple of examples where I know we did right. One, we closed the deal, made a lot of money, came, and the guy said to me later, CL, I presume you went to college, didn't you? And I actually took that as a badge of honor that it had never come up. It had never come up in years. I went to a bunch, but not in our discussions. Or another time, Another time, and this is how the personal relationships, if you get them this way, it's gold. We bought a business and the guy said, we get a rebate from our purchases every year. You bought it mid-year. Half of that rebate needs to go to me personally because I had the business through June, and the other half goes to our combined company. He's right. Well, what he failed to mention was the same process, the same approach, there's symmetry there with your bonus expenses. You own a bunch of bonus expenses, yet we're on the hook now. You should have eaten half of them because you own the company for half the year. I called the guy up, he'll remain unnamed, and I said, yo, this dog don't hunt. This isn't right. He said, you're right. I said, I got an idea. I said, you're going to expand your premises and probably start charging us more rent. He said, yeah. I said, forget the more rent. Let's move on. He said, that works for me. It was handled on a very personal basis in less than 30 seconds. And if we get relationships that way, we know we're doing it. But we're in the relationship business. Every time we meet a founder, the guys want to ask 700 questions. I tell them our first hour there is to make him like us. Our second hour there is to make him like us. And the last 30 minutes, pick whichever 5 questions you think are most important. But we're the bonding and people business. And that is the biggest difference than working for large known investment banks.
I love that, man. I love that so much. So when you look at,
why you do well in the private equity business.
I know. You've given me that advice before, and I'm like, oh man, I know. I feel like it's meant for me. I feel called to do it. What do you think, as far as kind of? I know it's half joking, but not. These Deerfield Academy, Exeter graduate. The world of private equity, especially on the coast. We really do have this like pedigree. I hate that word, but there's kind of this pedigree in finance. And, at the end of the day, there's so much of this money coming into private equity. I feel like there's almost a commoditization in that way.
Yes.
Right.
When I joined, I could tell you fewer than 10 pockets of $1 billion+ in the state of Texas, for example, when years ago. But you're right. The money has been commoditized. I think of it as a triangle. There's the deal, there's the talent, and there's the money. And whoever controls 2 of those, if you have the talent and you have the deal, you can find the money. Not problem.
So when you say talent, you mean that you can come in and add value in the deal? Is that what you mean?
Whether it's the talent in terms of investment talent, some of the things we do, improve systems, process, and the like, or whether it's bringing board talent, or whether it's outright bringing executives, on-ground executives to bear. But if you've got a good situation bought right, you've got the playbook, whether it's the private equity playbook or additional operating talent. If you have those things and you can't find the money, the problem is the market does not believe that you have those things. Because money is pervasive.
So wait, so you're saying if you have the talent and you have the deal, but you don't have the money, you can find the money?
Well, yes.
You're saying
this is also true. If you think you've bought the deal well and you vetted it right and you have good operators managing the business and you have a good plan, and then the market won't give you money, check your assumptions. But the market has told you that there's so much money that the market has told you that your assumptions are wrong.
Interesting. So if you have, and I think that's a great point to make, because so if people won't give you the money, especially for an old, it's one thing if you're trying to create the next Tesla and they're not giving you money. It's like, okay, well, I'm going from 0 to 1. I'm creating something that doesn't exist. But if I'm running Johnny Joe's plumbing company, like nothing's changing there, man. Maybe they're getting a little bit better in like the technology around plumbing, but like I don't think it's changing that much, right? So if someone's not wanting to give you money, they see something from a real meat and potato operating standpoint, or from a market headwind standpoint, or macroeconomic standpoint that you're not seeing. So great point to say that, hey, if I'm going out there and beating the bushes and no one's giving me money, then I got to go check my assumptions. I do have one question with that though. What
Darius,
about
it's no different than when I keep putting out songs and no one's buying, the market is talking to me.
Yeah. So kind of in that vein though, because obviously it's telling you got to change your songs or there's something
Right.
that's not catching. So going back to the early days though, when you were just getting started, because obviously you didn't have you had part of the pedigree in that you had done institutional deals, you worked for a large investment banking firm. So on paper, it's like CL's a smart guy that knows how to raise money, right? At very high levels, but you hadn't bought and helped add value to create as a principal. Like
I had, but I had not done so under the Crescendo flag. It was not the best story. And if your question is, well, how did you make it happen? How did you get those first 3 or 4? I mentioned I bonded others who had pedigrees, and I also flew 250 to 300 flights a year. I worked my ass off.
Got it.
Which was no change. But
yeah, no, that's a
very difficult. The second one, kind of. The third one, not really. The fourth one, and then they become easy. And I kind of lost track on how many we've done at this point. But
was there a point where you were like, all right, man, I think I got this. Like I figured it out, and where I feel comfortable. Like,
yes.
Was that the 5 to 8 year point when you're like, all right, I've done enough deals. When I call up the bankers, they know who I am. When I call up the lenders, they know who I am. And that just took what? Street cred, I guess.
It took 3 to 5 years, but we keep doing the same thing. We buy the same kinds of businesses. We have the same approach. We're buying them well. We're putting our own money again. And we're not chasing shiny objects. We have, at this point, we've got a whole entire ecosystem. But I did want to respond to your early point about how we hire into Crescendo and how we think about that. We think about how we want somebody that will ultimately be able to track up to a deal principal. And what we think about, we try to prospectively assess this person's ability to bond and resonate with founders. And I can tell you, we looked for an intern, or not an intern, but an analyst recently, and we talked to some of the better schools that you would know in our fine state and a couple of others. And I felt like these guys were interviewing me. The level of entitlement was, so I actually asked Noah, who you know is a Texas Tech grad. Texas Tech is not the Harvard of the South. That's where I got my undergrad. I said, call the dean of finance at Texas Tech, find out the 10 smartest guys there. And of those 10 smartest guys, I want to talk to the 2 who have the most grit. And that's exactly who succeed. We found some guy, I don't know if the timing will quite work. We found a fellow from Houston, and I don't know, he's making a 7.0 on a 4.0 scale. There are a lot of guys like that. What was interesting, though, was he was financing his own education. He's got working at a restaurant. He's delivering Domino's pizzas, working his ass off. And I said, that's our guy. That's the guy that will resonate with the fellow who builds our business, who builds the businesses we build.
Oh, it's not the kid that went to Deerfield Academy whose dad is a hedge fund manager? No way. I can't believe who grew up in Manhattan. No, are you sure? You sure? For whatever reason, I don't believe that.
It might be different, but most, as you said, many, not all, but many of our guys didn't go to college. They're outdoors guys. Most of them show up in jeans and short sleeves, and they have tats, and they may have a beer cooler, and they drive trucks, and they slap their guys on the back, and they enjoy spending time out in the field. We're positioning for that guy, for him to believe we're the best partner. And oftentimes we'll even encourage competition. But if anybody would ever also want one of these businesses that might be, let's say, normal coastal private equity firm, we'd say, yeah, please talk to them. It won't go well. Good in comparison.
It's like one of those things where you're like, let them see the difference. Let them have the conversation with the fucking know-it-all who thinks his shit doesn't stink, who's trying to like fake win them over, right? Because they can't. These dudes can't even help themselves. And I'm speaking just from personal experience.
Exactly.
Like it's like fake sincerity around like meeting Job six pack where he's at, whereas like
They're
no offense, but like
in their minds, they're slumming.
Yeah, they can't.
It's simple. We show up, and what we say is, look, we have a skill set that you don't have. We can buy. We have extra capital. We know how businesses sell. We don't know how to run plumbing businesses or electrical businesses or pool businesses or any kind of business. You have that. We can make a lot more money together if we are respectfully collaborative, bringing disparate complementary skills. We can make better music together than we can independently. That's what was, and that resonates.
I love it, man. So I know we're getting near the end here. I want to go two different directions really quickly. We have a question that we end every show on. It's called the greatness question. But before we go there, I know that I want you to talk a little bit about playing reggae music in the Caribbean, because I think it's just such a cool story. Well, and come on, man, just give us a little taste. Well, it's such a cool story.
It's not as big a deal as it sounds. Although I tell my daughter, I maybe spent a year of my life. That's 90% of my good stories. But it started actually when I went on a lark to the Turks and Caicos at the Club Med. There, I think I'd broken up with a girlfriend, and I decided, why not Club Med at Turks and Caicos to think about things. They had a piano there, and if there's a piano there, I can't go more than a couple of days without playing it. And, I banged around and met a couple of guys, and they said they're going to run around, primarily think of it as the English-speaking Caribbean hotel circuit. And what started as a band ended up primarily being Bob Marley covers, which is fine by me. Anytime the guys wanted to play a non-Bob Marley song, people would just go to the bathroom and would get up and get beer. So there's about 10 or 12 Bob Marley songs that everybody knows. There's another 20 Bob Marley songs that every Caribbean native knows. And it was a lot of fun, but I tried to scratch that musical itch a lot of different ways, and never really had as much fun as I did in the recording studio. If I just to give you a sense of, it would be like Tim Duncan and Manu and Tony said, hey CL, why don't you be part of the gang for a month? Sure, because it came to a Tiger connection once removed, but I found a producer who's worked for Coldplay. He brings in a lead singer who led a band called Click 5. They had 4 or 5 top 40 hits. The keyboardist, the native Texan, as is the producer, he tours with Crosby, Stills, and Nash. The mixer who's mixed for Beyonce and Jay-Z. The keyboard, I used to think I played the keyboards until I saw this guy played the keyboards. And I'm sitting in there with a smile, and you're giving this, well, a little money helps, but you're giving this TLC to what I call my shitty little ditties. And they're about done. Some of them are really good by accident, by transformation.
I love it.
But it's crazy fun. So whether your passion is, if you're a rollerblader, you spend a weekend with Rob Dyrdek, or whatever your passion is, painting, and to be able to rub elbows with the stars, and crazy fun.
I love it, man. And you're such a great example of someone that's just doing your thing, man, kicking ass, taking names, and then living your passions. And that's what the show's all about. So I love hearing that, man.
Well, you're a sports fan, right?
Not really. I don't. I like to play sports. I never like to watch. Yeah, it's funny. You're going to appreciate this. I was talking to someone about this yesterday. I said, I am a person that likes to podcast. I don't listen to podcasts. And when I was an athlete all the way through college, really.
Yes.
But I never really watched sports. But I like playing them.
Well,
I'm a very competitive person.
I was going to give an analogy about making music that no one else cares about. There was a famous boxing rivalry. I think there were 4 middleweights: Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, and Marvin Hagler. And they all fought each other, won and lost. Tommy Hearns was asked what Marvin Hagler was doing one time. And his famous quote, he said, and I'll get it verbatim, he said, "Marvin, making movies in Italy, ain't nobody watching." So I'm making music in New York, ain't nobody listening to, but I'm having fun.
Well, yeah, when you're Marvin Hagler, you can do whatever you want.
There's a rumor that one of the tunes might make the top 40 list in the Turner household.
Wow. I can't wait. When am I going to get to hear your songs? You going to play them at Tiger?
It's about done. If you're really serious, text me, email me, whatever. And I am. I'm proud. I'm really proud of about half of them.
You got to put them on SoundCloud just to see what happens.
I'm actually going to make a couple of music videos because why not?
Do you have a person that will direct your music videos?
Yes, I do. Okay,
I was going to say I have a friend that won a video music award. He won a VMA for MTV for he did video music awards for Britney Spears, Kesha, Black Keys. This guy won a VMA for best new director.
I know Kesha is KEI $HA.
Yeah, there you go. So
that's what having a 19-year-old daughter will do.
If you haven't finalized, I can hook you up with Chris Morris-Calero, who I went to high school with. He is an award-winning video music director. I've tried to get him on the show. Well, he hasn't been very receptive, but he is an old friend of mine. All right, let's go to the greatness question. I'll get you out of here. I know it's Friday afternoon, and I want to respect your time. So here at the Greatness Machine, like I said, we are about people who are living their passions to create greatness in the world and doing so despite the odds. So this is kind of an underdog show.
Phil Collins, Against All Odds.
There you go. So what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you have overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it? You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers, and after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.